From homeless to millionaire, the black man who inspired Elon Musk and Donald Trump. James Carter was a man who seemed to live on the edge of two worlds. One day, he was curled up in a grimy alley, the cold biting through his threadbare coat. The next, he was shaking hands in glass towers, his name on every headline. From homeless to millionaire, they shouted. But nobody really knew the real story. How did a man with nothing win in a game built for the lucky? And why were Elon Musk and Donald Trump both said to have studied his moves closely, like students watching a masterclass? People whispered rumors. Some claimed James once cracked a code on Wall Street no one else even noticed. Others swore he had been part of a secret network of hustlers, trading secrets under flashing neon lights. His rise was messy, sudden, a shockwave in the business world that left his rivals scrambling. But behind the glossy smiles and flashy suits, James carried something darker. One bitter night, the lights flickered inside like ghosts. That's when he saw her, a small, elderly black woman, sitting alone, her eyes sharp, staring into the storm like she could see right through him. She spoke in a soft voice, but her words hit him like bricks. "James," she said, and something in her tone stopped him cold. "You don't know what's buried beneath that fortune of yours. Secrets that twisted your family. Secrets you left behind when you escaped the streets." His heart pounded. His breath caught in his throat. Who was she? How did she know his name? His carefully built empire felt suddenly fragile, like a house of cards trembling in a storm. The woman told stories, shards of memories that didn't fit with the life James thought he had escaped. She spoke of a past drenched in pain and betrayal, of choices made in desperation that rippled through generations. James's hands trembled as he listened. This was no ordinary stranger. But then, just as the shadows closed in, a figure from his past appeared. A rival with cold eyes, the kind that knew how to twist a knife. This enemy wasn't after money alone, but the very soul James fought to protect. Suddenly, the game changed. Every secret the woman revealed became a weapon. Every memory, an opening for attack. James stood at a crossroads. Keep hiding behind the $1,000,000 mask? Or tear it down to find something real, something human beneath the surface? And just as he thought the chaos might consume him, the woman whispered a final, shattering truth. Something about his family ties that even James didn't see coming. It was a link to a past he buried for good reason, and a future tangled in mystery. The rain fell harder, the city lights blurred, and James realized this was just the beginning. What would he do when the demons from his own bloodline came knocking? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like that really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. James stood still, the rain drumming against his back, the woman's voice echoing in his mind. What weren't the secrets he buried? His heart raced, caught up in shadows that felt heavier with each breath. It couldn't shake off the chilling weight of her gaze, the truth looming just out. "Oh, James," she urged, her voice barely a whisper, but it cut through the storm. "You have to understand." Suddenly, a shout pierced the night. A group of men, faces masked with anger, burst from a nearby alley. Their eyes were wild, a fury directed at James, but their target wasn't obvious. The leader, a tall man with a jagged scar running down his cheek, locked onto James, fury brewing like a storm about to break. "James Carter!" he shouted, spitting out the name like poison. "You think you can just leave? You're one of us!" The words felt like a slap. One of them? James's mind raced, heart pounding like a drum. "What are you talking about?" he stammered, confusion spinning in his gut. "Don't play dumb," the man snarled, stepping forward. "You know what you did. You left us in the dust." The mysterious woman stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "James, don't let them provoke you. They're part of the past you're trying to forget." James's breath hitched. Who were these people? Memories flickered like ghosts. A gang? A life he'd fought desperately to escape. He looked at the woman. She seemed to see everything, yet her warnings were tangled in the chaos. The men advanced, voices rising in a cacophony of anger. "You think you can just pretend that life never happened? You stole from us, left us to rot." The rain increased, hammering down like judgment. But then, in the thick of it, James heard something else, a familiar voice from behind him. "Enough!" A woman stepped forward, drenched and fierce. She was someone he recognized. His sister. "Lola! Lola!" His heart dropped, a wave of disbelief hitting him. She shouldn't be here. She was supposed to be safe, miles away from this nightmare. But there she was, eyes blazing, with all the fury of shared blood. "What are you doing?" "I'm claiming you!" "You let them believe they lost you. You were family, James. But you cut us out so clean, you never looked back." The words rattled like thunder, shaking James to his core. He felt dizzy. Memories bled together. Laughter, fights, promises, dark corners of a life he tried to forget, now crashed into his reality with force. An unexpected truth cut through him. He had betrayed them all for this charade of success. Lola stepped closer, voice hushed but fierce. "You can pretend all you want, but the past will claw its way back. And those men, they aren't just angry. They're family too." Gasps erupted through the crowd surrounding them, ripples of shock and confusion. James stumbled back, hands raised, head spinning. The rain soaked him to the bone, but as he tried to catch his breath, the ground beneath him felt like quicksand. "Wait!" he shouted, desperately searching for an anchor. "Let me explain." But his words were swallowed in the storm. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted nearby, a car mindlessly careening down the street, crashing into a lamppost. Glass shattered, illuminating the dark alley with harsh light. All eyes turned, and in that moment, something shifted. The anger in the gang softened into uncertainty. But James, he was left gripping the truth too heavy to carry. The blood ties that bound him were more tangled than he had ever wanted to admit. Would he drown in that past, or fight his way back to the surface? As the rain fell relentlessly, he stood on the precipice of everything he'd been avoiding. The horizon rippled with secrets yet to unfold. James stood at a crossroads. The rain pounded the pavement like a drum, drowning out his thoughts. But the woman's words echoed in his mind, relentless, secrets buried beneath, family ties. He was exposed, bare, his mantle of wealth feeling tighter, heavier, like a noose around his neck. Then it happened. A scream shattered the night. James whipped around. The cafe door burst open. A figure stumbled out, drenched and wide-eyed, panic painting every feature. It was a man, a stranger, but there was something familiar about him. He looked like James. "Help! Somebody help!" the man shouted. His voice cracked with fear, cutting through the rain. James stepped forward, confusion churning in his gut. "What's going on?" The man lunged toward him, desperation etched into every line of his face. "They're coming for you! You don't understand! They know everything!" Before James could react, the stranger gasped, his eyes rolling back. He collapsed, the weight of fear dragging him down. James knelt beside him, heart racing. The elderly woman was silent now, her expression unchanging, watching, waiting. "Stay with me," James said, shaking the man's shoulders. He lifted him gently, searching for answers in those wild eyes. "Who's coming? What do you mean?" The man's breath came in ragged gasps. "Your father? He was involved. You've got to run. They'll find you." James's heart sank. The word father sent a jolt of recognition crashing into his mind. The father he barely remembered, the man who had vanished long ago, leaving only shadows and whispers in his wake. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps broke through the rain. Twisting his head, James caught sight of figures emerging from the shadows. Dark silhouettes moving with purpose. Their faces were hidden, but the danger crackled in the air like static. "Run!" the stranger choked out, but it felt like slow motion. James's instincts kicked in, adrenaline pumping through his veins. He didn't know where to go, didn't know who these people were. The storm intensified, soaking him to the bone. He turned back to the stranger, but he was gone. Just like that, disappeared like smoke. "James!" The voice of his rival sliced through the chaos. A cold laugh rose from the depths of the shadows. "Looks like the cat has some mice to play with." James's breath hitched. The man was here, the enemy who had clawed his way into the fabric of his success. But this time, there was more at stake than money. There were secrets, truths that he didn't want to unravel. The figures closed in, the rain illuminating their faces. James's heart pinched. A sudden realization hit him. The faces weren't just strangers. They were family. Faces that looked like his, like him. He stood frozen, questions swirling in his mind. What did they want? What did they know? The storm raged on, a backdrop to the unfolding chaos, drowning out the answers that threatened to surface. Then, in one agonizing moment, the woman's warning flashed before him. Secrets that twisted your family. Was the fortune he built worth the truth he could lose? James felt a wave of panic grip him, drowning his breath. Each heartbeat echoed in his ears. The mask he wore was cracking, and he could almost hear the whispers of his past. And then, without warning, the figure surged forward. James turned to run, heart pounding, feet pounding against the wet pavement. But what awaited him in the shadows? The rain fell harder, a torrential downpour as he sprinted into the night, racing against more than just his enemies. What truth lay behind the door of his family's history? And would he survive to uncover it? James turned to run, heart pounding in his chest. But every corner of the alley felt like a trap. He sprinted into the shadows, the pounding rain on the pavement drowning out his thoughts. The figures were closing in, dark and threatening, their anger palpable in the air. "Think you can run from us, Carter?" the voice taunted, slicing through the storm. Just then, the world around him shifted again. Out of nowhere, the sky lit up with a flash, lightning stitching the horizon into jagged lines. In that moment, he saw their faces, familiar yet terrifying. They looked like remnants of his past, faces that echoed his own. His breath caught. Could they really be family? But before he could process that chilling thought, the woman, the elderly keeper of secrets, whispered from the shadows, "Remember who you are, James." Her voice was urgent, pulling him back. The words spun in his head like a whirlwind. His legs pushed harder, urgency fueling his escape. He had to find a way out. But the rain fell heavier, endlessly pouring like tears from the sky. Every step felt like he was wading through memories he'd tried so hard to drown. Suddenly, a deafening crash echoed behind him. The gray facade of the cafe collapsed, bricks tumbling down in a flurry. The thunder roared, mingling with the cries of shock from the crowd. James halted. Time slowed. The cafe wasn't just rubble. It was his past crumbling before him. Among the chaos, he noticed the strangers edging closer. Eyes wild with a hunger that felt like a knife to his heart. Then came the sound of sirens, piercing through the night. But it didn't provide comfort. Instead, it deepened the dread pooling in his stomach. "James!" a voice shouted. His sister Lola was trying to break through the mass of bodies. "Get out of here!" But he wouldn't leave her. Not again. He turned back, ready to protect her. But instead, a piercing scream cut through the air. It was the stranger from earlier, the one who had collapsed. The man had risen, eyes wide with terror. "It's not them, it's—" Lola's gaze snapped to him, confusion and fear mingling. "What is going on?" The stranger's voice dropped, and in that moment, the true horror began to unfurl. "Your father. He isn't who you think he is." Then the ground shook, a tremor beneath their feet, as if the very city was warning them. A truck careened around the corner, slamming into an overturned car, metal crunching and crumpling like paper. And in the mayhem, James felt a pull. The winds shifted. The elder woman's eyes caught his, a glint of dark knowing. "James, the truth!" she shouted, a desperate urgency in her voice. In that chaos, something shifted inside him. It was more than fear. It was clarity. As the dust settled and the cries of the crowd reached a fever pitch, James found himself standing at the center of the storm. The lights flickered above, then went dark. The shadows swallowed him whole, and he heard that whispered truth slam into place. "What truth?" he gasped, but the answer hung in the air, heavy and unspoken. Suddenly, the man, a lost piece of his own reflection, screamed again, "Your lineage!" And then everything went black. In that void, James felt a fragment of his identity shred like paper caught in a flame. When the lights flickered back on, his world was changed irrevocably. The man lay sprawled, and the truth slid into place like a knife. Who was he? Who was James Carter really? As whispers filled the alley, and shadows closed in, something primal clawed at him. Would he rise from this wreckage, or drown in the shock of his inherited chaos? James stood still, the cold rain pounding down, each drop like a reminder of his past. The words of the old woman hung in the air, thick with unspooled tension. His heart raced. He took a step back, wondering if this was truly happening. The shadows felt closer now, breathing down his neck like a predator. Who are you?" he finally managed to ask, his voice cracking as he faced her penetrating gaze. The old woman smiled softly, but it was a smile filled with storms. "I am the keeper of what you've neglected, James. The truth you've run from will catch you." Then, without warning, the air shifted. A loud crash ripped through the night, reverberating off the cafe walls. The glass shattered, sending shards glinting like stars onto the sidewalk. James's body instinctively turned toward the noise. A figure emerged from the chaos, his silhouette sharp against the jagged remains of the window. It was Marcus, his once closest friend turned bitter rival, a man of cold intentions and sharper edges. "James," he called, his voice like ice slicing through the rain. "Time's up." Every muscle in James's body tensed. The old woman remained still. She seemed to sense the storm brewing. Her eyes narrowed as she looked between the two men, as if she understood something deeper. James's mind raced. Why was Marcus here? "What do you want?" But Marcus didn't answer. Instead, he lunged forward, gripping James's collar with a strength that sent a jolt through him. "You think you can just build an empire from nothing? This isn't just about money anymore, James. It's about family." The world tipped on its axis, and for a moment, everything froze. The rain continued to fall, each droplet echoing the tension hanging in the air. "Family?" James spat, confusion lacing his response. "You don't know anything about me." But just as Marcus opened his mouth to speak, the old woman raised a hand. "Stop!" Her voice cracked through the night like thunder. "You have no idea what binds you two." Time paused. Marcus stepped back, surprise flickering across his cold eyes. "What are you talking about, old woman?" James felt a chill crawl down his spine. What do you mean?" he asked, fear tightening around his throat. She stepped closer, ignoring Marcus's incredulity. "James, what if I told you that the legacy you fled isn't just yours, isn't just shackles of the past, but a lineage tainted by betrayal?" Born from blood that runs deeper than you know? A gasp escaped Marcus's lips. The tension hung thick in the air. What are you saying? The woman locked her gaze with theirs. You share a bloodline intertwined by choices long forgotten, a family secret that neither of you expected. This is not simply a rivalry. This is a reckoning. Heart hammering, James felt the weight of her words, crashing like waves against his sanity. He turned to Marcus, their past flashing through his mind. Laughter, dreams, camaraderie turned to hatred. No, he breathed, his voice barely a whisper. No, it can't be true. The woman's eyes glimmered with knowing. Truth often lies beneath layers, surprising even those who think they've escaped their shadows. Suddenly, there was a loud scream, shattering the moment. A woman emerged from nowhere, her face pale as she clutched her chest. James, you have to run. They're coming. Fear exploded within him. James turned back to the others. The future loomed dark, shadows in every corner. What lay ahead? How deep did this tangled web go? The answers felt close, yet impossibly far. And in that instant, beneath the relentless rain and the chaos of shattered glass, everything he thought he knew was crumbling away. What had he really escaped? James stood at a crossroads. The rain pounded on him, each drop a reminder that the storm was not just outside, it was within him too. He looked at the woman, her eyes deep pools of knowing. The shadows pressed in, but then everything shifted. A loud crash echoed from the street. Glass shattered. The cafe door flung open. A woman burst in, wild-eyed and dripping wet. She looked like she'd run straight from a horror movie. Panic danced on her face. Help! They're coming! James's heart sank into his stomach. Who's coming? He shouted, stepping forward. Please! She grabbed his arm. They know! They found out! A siren wailed in the distance, drowning out her voice. The old woman's expression twisted from calm to alarm. James! She whispered, urgency painting her tone. You need to listen. This is about your family. But before she could speak more, the woman at the door turned pale, her gaze shooting past James. Fear exploded in her eyes. We have to hide! A figure loomed in the doorway, silhouetted against the rain-soaked streetlights. It was a man, tall and imposing, with a shadow that seemed to stretch forever. He looked dangerous, like trouble had stolen his soul. Get back! James shouted, instinct kicking in. He grabbed the old woman by the arm, pulling her to the back, away from the chaos. The siren rang louder. His pulse raced. As they retreated, the cafe shook with a loud thud. The man had stepped inside, his eyes scanning the room with a predator's focus. I know you're here, James, he called, voice dripping with malice. You can't hide from the past. James felt a rush of panic, but also something deeper. Recognition. Who was this man? Why did his presence twist something in his gut? Then all at once, the wild-eyed woman spoke, her voice shaky but clear. James, it's your brother! A jolt of shock raced through him. His brother? The brother he thought was gone forever? No, he whispered, the word barely escaping his lips. Yes, she insisted, her breath hitching. He's been looking for you. He knows everything. Everything about your family's secrets. The glassy-eyed rival took a step closer, smirking in the dim light. You thought you could erase the truth? You thought you could escape him? James's world spun. A brother he thought was dead. Family secrets. The weight of generations pressing down on him until it felt like he couldn't breathe. "I don't want any part of this," James shouted, his voice trembling. The walls seemed to close in, shadows pressing against his sanity. "Too late for that, little brother," the man laughed, a guttural sound that sent chills down James's spine. "You can't run from who you are." And then, in a blinding flash, something else struck James like lightning. The old woman's stories, the pain, the choices, the secrets buried deep. What if they weren't just warnings, but a reflection of a past he couldn't escape? He faced her, desperation clawing at his throat. "What do I do?" But before she could answer, a shot rang out, cracking the stillness like a whip. The sound echoed, reverberating through the cafe. James froze. Chaos erupted. The woman screamed. The rival lunged. Everything spun as James felt the floor drop beneath his feet. He stared into the eyes of his brother. Dangerous, alive, real. Did he even want to know the truth anymore? The world blurred as darkness began to close in around him. What happened next was only the beginning of a fight that would change everything. James felt the weight of the woman's words settle like a stone in his stomach. The rain fell heavier, the wind howling like a warning. "Demons from my own bloodline?" he murmured, trying to piece together the fragments of her tale. But before he could ask more, a flash of lightning illuminated the alley, bright as day. And in that instant, the familiar chill of a lurking danger crept into his veins. Then it happened. A shot rang out, sharp and piercing, shattering the fragile night. Time froze. James's heart raced as he instinctively ducked, but not fast enough. He felt a sting. A bullet grazed his arm, warm blood trickling down. Adrenaline surged. He scrambled, the alley becoming a chaotic blur. The old woman gasped, her face a mask of horror. "James, get down!" she shouted. But he was already moving. Shadows sprang to life around him, darting in and out. Hidden figures trained on him. Who were they? Enemies long forgotten? Did they come for his empire? Or was this something deeper, a twisted fate unearthing its designs? He dashed toward the cafe, hoping the flickering lights offered refuge. Inside, he slid behind a table, adrenaline burning through him. The woman followed, her movements surprisingly swift for someone her age. Her eyes still sharp as she scanned their surroundings. Outside, shouts and chaos erupted. James's mind raced. He felt a mix of fear and anger. Who had done this? Why? But the old woman spoke again, her voice low but urgent. "They are here for you, James, not just for what you own, but for who you truly are." "What do you mean?" he snapped, frustration boiling over. "I made myself. I built this life from nothing." Her gaze pierced through him. "Did you truly think you could escape? The truth will find you, and it will tear down everything you've built." He tuned her out, focusing instead on the clash outside. But then, amidst the turmoil, another realization struck him. Like a slap across the face, a familiar voice rang through the din. A voice he hadn't heard in years. His brother, Marcus. "James, where are you?" The desperation in Marcus's call shattered James's heart. He hadn't seen Marcus since he ran away, leaving their past behind. The last thing he remembered was their bitter relationship, one tangled in jealousy and resentment. Marcus, he breathed, suddenly caught between the ghosts of his childhood and the life he had built. He looked at the old woman, confusion hitting him like a wave. What does he want? Your brother carries the burden of your family's secrets. He is the key to understanding the curses that follow you. Before she could finish, the cafe door flew open. James's heart dropped as Marcus stumbled in, disheveled and wild-eyed. "James, they're coming for you! You need to leave now!" He locked eyes with James, then turned to the old woman, fear radiating from him. "Who is she?" His voice dripped with distrust. "What does she want?" The tension in the air thickened. James felt a sickening twist in his gut. Who could he trust? His brother? This mysterious woman? The truths he had buried began to crawl to the surface, and with them, the haunting realization that everything he thought he knew was built on shattered foundations. "James?" Marcus's voice trembled, his expression shifting from fear to desperation. There's something you need to know. Something about Mom." The world around him swirled. Rain poured. Shadows lurked. And as Marcus opened his mouth to speak, James felt the ground fall beneath him. What secret was buried so deep that it could change everything? The answer loomed like a dark cloud, and as he caught Marcus's eye, he knew the storm was just beginning. James felt the weight of the old woman's gaze, heavy with secrets, as Marcus opened his mouth to speak. There's something you need to know about Mom." His voice was straining, each word edged with desperation. The air felt electric, sharp with tension. James could feel his heart race. He pressed, the urgency overpowering his fear. But before Marcus could answer, the door swung open again, and chaos exploded into the cafe. A gang of men rushed in, fierce and shouting, their faces twisted with anger. The room erupted in shock. Sirens wailed outside, closing in on them, intensifying the panic. "Get down!" James shouted, pulling the old woman behind a table. The crash of furniture echoed as he ducked low, adrenaline pumping. Marcus did the same, though his eyes never left James. "Stay down!" the men yelled, and one raised a weapon, pulse racing around them like a storm. A shot rang out. Glass shattered again, raining down like sharp confetti. But it was then, in that brief moment of pandemonium, that everything changed. The woman still remained, her expression unflinching in the chaos. But as one of the men tried to shove his way through, she stepped forward, firing a look like lightning. "Stop!" she commanded, her voice cutting through the noise. Unexpectedly, the thug froze. The room hushed. Everybody stared at her, confusion rippling through the gang. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "You shouldn't be part of this." One of the men in the back, larger than the rest, stepped forward, eyes narrowing, disbelief etched on his face. "What do you mean? Who are you?" His tone shifted, wavering as he recognized her. The old woman stood taller, unwavering against the encroaching threat. "I am the keeper of truth, and you know what that means for your master." "Who the hell do you think you are?" he spat, but uncertainty clouded his voice. Marcus stepped forward before James could react. "This isn't a game. You're making a mistake." James's heart raced, the tension thickening until it felt like a tangible weight. "Just tell me what's happening. What does she mean?" Before anyone could answer, the old woman glanced at Marcus, her expression softening. "You were always drawn into this life. It's time, Marcus. Time to face what you've hidden." With that, everything unraveled. The sounds of silence turned to a haunting echo, the air chilled and still. The men backing away looked shaken. "What does she know?" they whispered among themselves, glancing back at her. Then, as if something snapped, the leader's face twisted in confusion that turned to fury. "Does she expect us to believe her?" He lunged at the old woman, but time seemed to slow. James shouted, but the old woman raised her hand. "You think this is just about money? About power?" Her words sliced through the air like a blade. "You've never truly known what lies behind those walls." James felt a spark of truth hanging in the space between them, an invisible thread knitting their fates together. Suddenly, the larger man turned, his expression changing. You're one of us? What?" James's confusion morphed into dread. The man took a step back, eyes widening. "No, it can't be true. You're lying." But the old woman shook her head slowly. "No one was ever truly gone, Marcus. The truth will always bind us, no matter how far you run." In that moment, as the shadows closed in, something clicked. The air thickened with unspoken revelations. James glanced between the still-denying rival and his brother. Who was telling the truth? Then a scream erupted from behind them. A figure burst through the door. His mother. She looked frail and terrified, stumbling into the chaos of revelation. The tension shattered, all eyes on her, as her voice broke. "James! Marcus! I tried to protect you from this." Everything blew apart in a whirlwind of gasps and disbelief. Secrets unveiled, identities tangled. James felt his world tilt. Could this woman really be the final piece of a twisted family puzzle? Not an enemy, but part of the very legacy he believed to escape? As the storm raged outside, old wounds tore open, leaving them all standing at the edge of truth. And as his mother's eyes met his, he felt the ground beneath him crumble. What did it all mean? And could he trust anyone? The night deepened, shadows closing in, holding secrets darker than any of them could possibly understand. James felt the world tilt. His mother, standing there amid chaos, suddenly seemed smaller. She was frail, but her presence was commanding. "I tried to protect you from this." Confusion and shock rippled through him. "Protect me from what?" His voice was sharp, but deep down, fear gnawed at him like a feral animal. The gang menacingly watching from across the room, the smell of rain-soaked fear heavy in the air. As if sensing the weight of the moment, Marcus stepped closer to their mother, eyes wide. "What do you mean, Mom? What's going on?" I never wanted you to know. It was never meant to come out like this." Her voice cracked, panic shimmering beneath the surface. The larger man, sensing the shift, smirked. Secrets can't stay buried forever, can they? His eyes gleamed like angry coals, igniting a fire in the room. Suddenly, a loud crash interrupted the tense silence. The door burst open, making everyone turn as a figure stumbled in, breathless and wild. "Get out! They're here!" A panic-stricken look flickered across his features. "Who?" James shouted, but couldn't move. The world felt frozen, locked in this moment. Before the stranger could answer, he collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. There was something familiar about him, something troublingly close. "Get him out of here!" Marcus shouted, but James was already kneeling beside the stranger. A feeling of dread washing over him as their eyes met. "James," he breathed, urgency lacing his tone. "Listen." But then the man's face twisted in agony. "You don't know the truth, your father." Those were the last words he managed before his body went slack. A tightness gripped James's chest, his heart racing. This man looked like him. What? There was disbelief in every corner of James's mind. How could that be? The pieces of the puzzle were unraveling too quickly, and the threads tangled fiercely in James's head. Then the old woman stepped forward. "That man, he is your brother, James." A stunned silence filled the air. The room felt distant, as if James was outside himself, watching the world fall apart. "My brother?" he echoed, barely a whisper. "Yes," she urged. "Your father, he didn't just leave. He was taken by the family he turned against. He was protecting you both." The gang members exchanged frantic glances. The atmosphere shifted. The hunter was becoming the hunted. Chaos surged like a storm, but James's mind reeled. Everything he ever thought he knew felt like it was unraveling in front of him. The longer he stared at the old woman, at Marcus and their mother, the more the truth sunk in. "Betrayal? Protection?" he choked out, tears forming as the weight of revelation crashed down like waves. "But why didn't anyone tell me? Why keep me in the dark?" Before they could respond, a shriek pierced the din. The cafe door slammed open once more. In charged a different figure, a woman, fierce and wild with fierce eyes, holding a gun. "Get back!" she shouted, pointing toward the gang. Every breath hung in the air, raw and tense. The atmosphere crackled like a live wire. James's heart raced as she locked eyes with him. "You never left. You were destined to destroy them all." "What do you mean?" he rasped, confusion tightening around his throat. But as she stepped into the light, a gasp swept through the group. The world felt like it slipped. A cruel shift in reality. James stood frozen. This woman, it was his mother's twin. The look, the eyes, everything mirrored in shock. "Mum," he whispered, choking on the revelations. "Who are you really?" The truth shimmered heavily in the air. Suddenly, the ground felt ripped beneath him, and James knew something fundamental had shifted, warping everything he thought he knew into something dark and twisted. As the sirens wailed in the distance, he stared at her, heart pounding. Uncertainty flooded his chest. How deep did these family ties go? How much danger was he really in? Would he ever untangle this web? Or was every step a careening plunge into darkness? As the storm outside rattled the windows, the truth's chill seeped into his bones, leaving him questioning who he was meant to be. James stood at the edge of the chaos, heart racing, sweat-soaked shirt clinging to his back. The air felt electric, thick with uncertainty. His mother, her eyes wide with fear and urgency, reached out to him. "James, we don't have much time. He's coming for both of you." The gang members shifted, fear flickering momentarily across their faces. "What will you do?" one spat, pointing the gun at James. But as tension mounted, a loud crash interrupted. The front window shattered as sirens wailed, lights flashing outside like angry fireflies. James felt his heart pound in his throat. In that instant, his brother, no, both brothers, stood in a line of fire. "We need to leave!" Marcus shouted, his voice breaking through the chaos. But before anyone could act, their long-lost brother's body lay slack, the weight of desperation dragging him down. "Enough!" The woman with the gun yelled, her voice cutting through the drama. "Everyone gets out alive if we can just calm down." She held her ground, fierce and unyielding, locking eyes with James. "You're the key to this, James. The truth will change everything." James's mind spiraled. "What truth? Who are you?" The woman took a step forward, her voice unraveling a mystery. "You have the power to break this cycle, to end the feud." Marcus stepped back, a flicker of hope igniting in his eyes. Dot. Together, James caught the old woman's gaze, her confidence flared like a beacon. "You can rewrite history or let it consume you." But before they could decide, the leader of the gang charged forward, snarling, "Enough of this!" Boom! A deafening web of sound engulfed the room as the gun went off, echoing like thunder. Chaos erupted again, furniture shattering, people screaming. The group scattered, fear more palpable than ever. James felt a heat rising, anger mingled with fear, boiling in his chest. He turned to the old woman. "Tell me, who am I really?" Fear clutched at his heart, but clarity began to break through the fog. "James, your father!" Her voice was steady, unwavering. "He loved you. He tried to protect you from this world." The weight of her words wrapped around him, squeezing tight. Really? The man he'd resented? What lay beneath the anger? But the woman next to him, his mother, cursed softly, pulling him back. "Now isn't the time, James." A thunderous roar interrupted, and the bar was suddenly lit up with flashing lights. Police stormed in, ready to restore order. "Hands up, everyone, now!" James froze, his world tilting precariously. Sirens filled the air, sharp like broken glass. "Run!" Marcus yelled, grabbing James's arm, pulling him toward the back door. "This way!" The old woman slipped into the shadows, her voice lingering in his mind. The truth cuts deeper than any wound. But just as they reached the back exit, the gang members saw them. "Don't let them escape!" one shouted, charging forward. James's heart thudded as he sprinted, adrenaline coursing. Outside, the rain pounded, mixing with the sounds of chaos. The world felt surreal. A storm swirled around them. They ran, legs pounding against the pavement, feet splashing through puddles, urgency driving them forward. As they rounded the corner, Marcus turned to James. "We can't just run forever. We need to face them." James blinked, the gravity of his previous life crashing into him. How could he face a past he didn't want? But it was too late to go back now. And just as they caught their breath, the shadow of a figure appeared. The old woman emerged, her eyes fierce with determination. "Not all secrets need to remain buried. This is your chance." The night hung thick with tension, the world a chaotic swirl of possibilities awaiting them. Another thunderous clap resonated. Then silence settled in like a shroud. What was James to become after this? Could he really break the cycle, redefine who he was? As they all stood at a precipice between light and dark, a sinuous twist of fate lingered just out of reach. You must be ready for what comes next. Don't wait another second longer. Now is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you won't miss the upcoming exclusive stories that will blow your mind. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and make sure more epic tales reach you. Flood the comments with your reactions, your theories about this wild ending. What do you think will happen next? And for those who've loved this journey, share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to know how this unfolds. You've got to be a true fan and help the channel grow. Don't wait even a second longer.